A long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Hello and welcome to the C-Team. I'm Mike Curley.
And this is Frank Curley.
And as you might have guessed, we are, of course, talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, yeah, like that Michael Bay one. It came up with a third one already.
Really? Seriously?
Yeah, he's quick.
Damn. No, really, we're talking about Star Wars.
Yes.
Much better.
Yeah, much better film.
So, I don't think we need to introduce what Star Wars is.
It's Star Wars.
If you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what Star Wars is, how did you get here?
Yeah.
You're in the wrong place.
Are you actually from that galaxy far, far away? In that case, you should know it firsthand.
In that case, welcome aboard, and I hope you're on the light side.
Yeah, because, bad things seem to happen on both sides, but...
Honestly, the dark side, they seem to have a lot more fun with their work, just in general.
Yeah. They have cookies.
But anyway, getting more specific, we're talking about The Last Jedi, which just passed, I believe, a $1 billion box office worldwide. So
like the rest of them.
So moderately successful, small independent picture.
Just about caught up with Justice League.
Yeah, just about. So we're going to presume that you've seen the movie by now. It's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Yeah.
It'll be 3 weeks by the time you're listening to this.
It was enough time for me to see it 3 times because I showed my girlfriend the movie. She liked it, and we decided to show her brother that. So I've watched this 3 times.
I mean, honestly, about 9 hours is enough time to see it 3 times. So
Yeah.
But anyway, so...
if you have nothing to do one day.
So we're going to just jump right into it and assume you've seen it. So... I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. It was really good. It was really good. Not what I was expecting.
It played a lot with the structure of Star Wars movies. It's like the one Star Wars movies where all like the big, heroic, last-ditch efforts F up.
Yeah.
So they don't work. And it's kind of the movie spends a lot of time, putting that into you. It's like, okay, the desperation move is not always the best move, especially when it gets your entire team killed. But there was a lot of highlights in the movie. I think.
Oh yeah, the action is just great. Just like all the times, especially light speed through the entire first order fleet. I was like, holy shit!
There's a funny story about that. If you've seen the movie, you know that when Admiral Holdo, she shoots the ship into light speed and like wrecks everything.
Oh yeah.
And the film goes completely silent for about 10 seconds. And apparently a lot of people in the theaters did not realize that was on purpose. They started complaining. They'd come out of the theater and complain that the sound went out. So a lot of theaters actually had to post up a sign saying, look, at one point, the movie gets silent. It's supposed to do that. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well,
I've never seen a warning sign like that. I've gone to plays where there was a warning like there's a gunshot in this or somebody screams, but I've never seen a warning for silence.
Well, just the visual of that happening, just that still, that already screams so much.
Yeah, it really
bright
is.
Lights, and you do hear a sound eventually, just
yeah,
and it was.
It's just
awesome.
just cinematically speaking, just a very well done sequence.
Yeah,
where it's simple. It doesn't need the music. It doesn't need the sound. It's just look at this swath of destruction.
Yeah,
and it's just a very that was a highlight. That was definitely a highlight to me.
Yeah. Let's see. And Snoke.
Snoke.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I did. You know what? That's a scene I kind of saw coming about halfway through the scene because it became clear there was nobody reasonable that was going to come and rescue Rey otherwise. There's no way that scene was going to end without somebody bloody on the floor. And it is a bold move to kill off him middle of it and propel Kylo to the big bad spot, even though it's kind of big shoes for him. Well, I will say I did enjoy Snoke kind of screwing with Rey.
Yeah, dope slapping him with.
Apparently, if you watch closely, Kylo Ren just kind of ducks to the side, like he knows it's coming. He gets out of the way.
It's like, Rey, you want to? Damn it.
This was a surprisingly funny. I mean, Star Wars has always had humor to it, but I feel like the prequels, it was kind of hit and miss. partly because a lot of it was centered on like Jar Jar, and the writing of the prequels is not just not very good. Humor in the first one was the first trilogy when it was there was kind of really subtle, very like there wasn't a lot of like laugh out loud moments, but The Last Jedi starts off with a hilarious sequence with Poe trolling Hux. And it's just like it's unexpected for Star Wars, and that kind of sets the tone thematically for the movie because there's a lot in here that is not expected for Star Wars.
I would argue that Snoke's scene, intimidating Rey while the last of the Resistance getting blasted, that was far more intimidating than Last Jedi, Return of the Jedi was. During Sidious's big. Control everything speech.
I think part of that is because it comes in the second movie, and everybody goes into the second movie of a Star Wars trilogy thinking, well, things are going to get really bad here. So I was not sure that Rey was going to get out of there until Kylo started doing his thing.
Yeah, and, well, the funny thing is, we see Snoke impaled. And I was thinking, all right, how's he going to shrug out of this one? Lightsaber comes out, he falls in half. I go, guess he isn't. Okay.
Yeah, you didn't expect him to come out of it the way he did. And also, I think this is the first middle part of let me start over. This is the first middle portion of a Star Wars trilogy where there isn't a Skywalker that gets his hand lopped off. I mean, Kylo Ren is more or less intact, and I guess that would probably, that proves Rey is not a Skywalker because she kept both her hands.
Yeah.
Although Snoke, his hand got cut off when the lightsaber goes through him. So who knows?
Well, so the rest of them.
Yeah,
and there's also
I'm making
Darth
a joke.
Maul.
Well, he's not a Skywalker, Darth Maul.
Fair enough.
So yeah, there's a lot
Was he the dad the whole time?
Yeah, that would be interesting. Someone's already writing the fanfic, I'm sure.
Yeah. So have fun with that.
Yeah. So there's a lot. The fight that ensues after Snoke goes down is probably I would say one of the best fights, if not the best fight I've seen choreographed in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because it's rare to see like a brawl like that where. They're keeping up with Kylo Ren. It's a difficult fight for everybody. And Star Wars, the violence, the choreography has always been pretty choreographed, especially the lightsaber fights, especially in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, as I've stated, it's very much kind of like a ballet dance more than a fight.
Yeah, so it's great to see in this new trilogy that it really does look like a bunch of guys trying to kill each other. And that fight is as brutal as you're going to see in Star Wars. And I liked the style of it. It kind of got across the relative skill levels of Rey and Kylo Ren, where she's kind of struggling one-on-one, and he's taking them 3-on-1. And even when he's struggling, there's a clear difference there, and they play well with it. And showing them working together, it kind of gives you like a bittersweet glimpse of this is what it could look like if he did turn to the light side.
Yeah.
Which, of course, if you've seen the movie, he doesn't. Although the movie does prove that he is much more of a mama's boy, because he killed Han in the first one, but he does not take the shot on Leia. So I don't know what that means for him as a character, except that he was probably more afraid of his mother's wrath than his father's.
Well, she has the Force. Yeah, Han doesn't really.
He but we can empathize with that.
Well, the funny thing about the fight is. You realize Kylo Ren and Rey have the Force, and they have some, experience fighting, but I imagine the bodyguards have a lot more experience. And it really balances each other out.
It's nice to see those bodyguards. They're actually worth something. I mean, they kind of failed at their primary job because Snoke was dead before they can do anything, but they put up a pretty good showing, much better than any other stormtroopers we've seen before.
Yeah, and. Let's see. You had the epilogue, with the kid and and having watched it 3 times now. Yes, his fingers did not touch.
Yeah, it's a little. I like that they did not call attention to it. That is just a thing you have to be paying attention for.
And one thing my girlfriend pointed out is it's blocked, so the shadow toward the end looks like a kid holding a lightsaber.
Yeah, that was pretty well done, and that kind of. That's kind of what makes it the sweet of the bittersweet, that there is hope, and it almost feels like an ending. This one, it feels more like an ending than it does a middle portion.
It's a complete story, but we'll get to that. But,
I mean it more. It feels like the end of a trilogy more than it does the middle portion of a trilogy because of scenes like that. That's the kind of scene I would not expect unless the current story is over and you're talking about the future.
Yeah,
which we'll get to in a little bit.
So another little thing I want to bring up: the porgs.
They were not as bad as people were expecting.
Yeah, in fact, they grew in popularity as soon as they were revealed. And watching it, I realized, well, the problem with the Ewoks is they kind of had a weird Mary Sue treatment where for some reason they're taking on the Empire.
Well, I mean, I was watching Return of the Jedi earlier, and they're not totally effective. I mean, there's the scene of the one that's dropping rocks on the ATST. The ATST doesn't notice. It's when the big giant logs hit it, and the Mythbusters prove this would mess up a machine like that.
Oh, okay, the Mythbusters.
Mythbusters, scientific rigor.
Fair enough.
But it's just physics. I mean, there's a question of how little teddy bears got those logs that high up, but presuming they could, with that kind of trap, they could take out military hardware.
Yeah.
And they do take their lumps too.
But what I like is they basically stay in the background.
Yeah, because they're not even sapient characters. They're random birds that were running around.
Yeah, and the thing is, because Chewbacca ate a couple of them.
Well, he was going to. I think they guilted him out of it.
He put a stick down, by the fire before he went to like the backside we actually see. So yeah, we end up kind of feeling sorry for them.
Yeah, for some of them anyway.
Yeah, and again, they're not a Jar Jar Binks where they're taking up too much time.
Well, they're not. Yeah, they're not characters that you're supposed to believe are an important part. They're literally pests. They're pests that stow away on the Falcon because Chewie wasn't paying attention.
Yeah,
Han is like, oh, for God's sake, what are you doing to my ship?
Yeah, if I just goes like,
yeah. And it's a funny story how it's funny how they get in the way in the movie, like they're always in the way, because that's how it was. They're actually, the reason they're in the film is because there is a species of puffin penguins on the island they were using, Skellig Michael, that are endangered, so it was illegal for the film crew to move them. So they just ended up in every shot, so they're covered up in CG with the porgs. And that's kind of why they're obnoxious and in the way in every shot they're in. And I think there's just a funny story where, the creature that on the first blush looks like some new creature that's going to take over the merchandising is literally because it was a bunch of birds that would not get out of the way.
So, to criticize, I do want to critique the movie a little bit.
Yeah, it's not a perfect Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me was the mutiny.
Yeah, the whole thing with Holdo kind of hinges on her not telling everybody a plan. That there's no good reason not to tell people the plan.
Yeah, and she's a high-ish ranking officer on a rebellion, not like she's not working for the CIA.
Well, there is the issue in the defense. There's the issue that not everybody, that she probably does not know how they're being tracked. So there is probably a suspicion that there is a traitor on board. And before they, Finn and Rose come to the conclusion that they're doing some kind of long-range tracking, I thought that was going to be a reveal, or that they were tracking that wrist thing that Leia had.
Yeah, but
so there is a slight justification. I wish they would have said that.
Yeah, or implied. The thing is, it wasn't even implied.
Yeah, and then it's just I'm not telling you because I'm annoyed with you is what it boils down to.
Yeah, basically, kind of this weirdly snobbish, high-ranking officer of rebellion. The mutiny itself. Here's what I feel would have been. I feel going into the ship and shutting down the tracking should have been, the fleet's primary goal, with the escape pods being the backup plan. I feel that would have made a lot more sense in narration. Otherwise, the mutiny itself doesn't have a whole lot of consequence. They basically just slapped Poe and say, "Oh no, this was the plan the whole time. Sorry, we didn't tell you."
Yeah, well, by the time the mutiny happens, like by the time he wakes up, there's no longer a brig to put him in. He wakes up on the shuttle as they're evacuating. So there's not really the consequence of the mutiny is that it does screw things up because the cracker they get, not the trustworthy one, this guy DJ, sells them out and ends up killing most of the resistance.
Well, here's the thing. That's a consequence of the plan. And I kind of feel you could have DJ there, regardless of whether or not there was a mutiny. Again, if the higher ups, saw this as a decent, plan. That plan has the consequence. The mutiny, Poe wasn't strung up. None of the other mutineers were strung up. It was just like, misunderstanding.
Well, by the time the mutiny happens, there isn't time to string them up or do anything like that. And frankly, they're down to like 12 guys. If they're not going to court-martial what amounts to like 20% of their fighting power.
Yeah, I still...
There's not a consequence for the mutiny itself, except for the consequences that result from the mutiny, which is probably for a guy like Poe, and the lesson he learns in the movie is pretty big of a punishment. And his lesson is, you don't have to, being the stupid heroic flyboy is not always the best option.
Yeah, but it's lost when you realize it was just because Holdo was being an idiot. That is the reason why he
well, yes, there is
and,
that, but it's also a lesson he does have to learn.
Holdo I feel that was a little hollow. That
it could. I'm agreeing with you that the whole Holdo thing could have been handled better. They could have given a better reason for her not to tell Poe or not to tell enough people that Poe could mutiny with. There is that, but there's also something to be said about chain of command and trusting. Or the lesson he's supposed to be learning here is to listen to others and not go for the all or nothing death and glory thing, which is kind of like even when Finn tells him, we're being tracked, Poe's reaction is, okay, so we'll blow up the ship. He doesn't even know how we're going to do that. The fighting ships that the rebellion have are gone. So that's the lesson he's supposed to be learning is don't go off, don't just jump in an X-Wing and blow things up because it gets people killed. And that's the lesson he's supposed to learn. And yes, Holdo, that character could have been better written to give better justification for her actions, but that doesn't erase the importance of that character development on Poe's part.
I don't know.
But anyway, the other big thing, the other big criticism is Luke Skywalker. The end scene of the Last Jedi the end scene of The Force Awakens has Luke. That scene to me did not look like Luke was just going to throw the lightsaber over his shoulder and tell Rey to bugger off. Yeah. So that's the first thing, and even Mark Hamill was saying, like, this is not my Luke Skywalker. But I will say kudos to him for, even if he disagreed with it, acting the hell out of that role.
Yeah.
He still puts his all into it, even though he disagrees with it. And that's worth respecting, if nothing else.
Weird enough, George Lucas ended up liking the film.
Yeah, after he didn't... he was more critical of The Force Awakens than of this one.
Well, I think he had a point where Force Awakens was a retelling of...
A New Hope.
A New Hope for the most part. And
I
agree with him on that.
Yeah, and it was for a large part. I mean, even Han Solo's like, well, it's like the Death Star again. Well, yeah. And Han Solo gets the Obi-Wan treatment, kind of involuntarily. But, yeah.
It wasn't Plan A.
Yeah, that was kind of a conscious decision in that case. And this one was a conscious decision to be different. And the whole movie spends its time taking Star Wars tropes and basically deconstructing them. The last ditch attack to destroy the big super weapon. Yeah, it's great. It looks good. It does something, but you lost major sections of your own people who did not necessarily have to die for you to get out.
Yeah.
And
so yeah,
other such things. The big heroic. That it's just a repeated thing. The big heroic stand is not necessarily the way to go. Sometimes you have to run away to fight another day.
Yep. So and that's one of the reasons this stands out. most decisions. I heard a quote that characters should make decisions even if they are bad ones.
Yes,
or,
definitely.
or just wrong decisions. And yeah, this is chock full of them. The mixed bags that these decisions are emphasize how desperate the Resistance's fight is. You took out the dreadnought but lost the entire bombing fleet. Go on Snoke's ship, and you end up destroying most of the Resistance. But Snoke and Phasma are dead. Luke is dead, but his display cost much of Kylo Ren's respect as a leader. And Rey, got Kylo Ren to kill Snoke, but he still wants to wipe out the Resistance and wipe out the Sith and basically wipe out everyone else.
Yeah, so that's kind of what makes it a middle entry, in that the decisions don't end up solving everything. Although I will say, going back to Holdo for a second, the other criticism I have is, why wait? Once you see they're shooting the shuttles, do that lightspeed kamikaze then. Don't wait until they're down to the last 6. Well, she wasted a lot of time before making that decision, and that's just anyway. But
in a panic, you're not thinking
she's
all
not
that clearly.
Panicking. She didn't look like she was panicking.
Well, some people don't look like they're panic, but they're still inwardly screaming.
Why are you defending her now? You just called her an idiot for 15 minutes before.
Well, I still say that was a cool scene, but my criticism of her is not telling anyone anything for no good reason. Staying behind and realizing, that plan just didn't work. I can see why someone would panic.
I don't think there was panicking. But anyway,
you
going back,
panic.
It's not panic. It's despair or sadness, but not panic is when you're in trouble. I didn't see panic in how she was acting.
You could panic because someone else is in trouble.
Frank, I don't think she was panicking. I don't think that's a good justification. But anyway, on the other things we're talking about, especially Luke. I mean, I remember that the meme before when the movie was announced was, I better not have to watch Luke Skywalker die with my own eyes. And I kind of went into it thinking that they were going to do that because we knew that Leia was going to have the big role in the 9th, so it kind of made sense that they were going to kill Luke. But he went out really well.
Yeah,
he humiliated Kylo Ren, and it was just again another very funny scene where he's like, "Shoot everything," and he just steps out of it no,
yep, brush it off.
Or Hux going, I think you got him. But yeah, it was a great scene in that it showed that was really the master versus the apprentice, where
just trolling the
Luke,
hell out of him.
It makes me wish you could see Luke in his prime, but after Return of the Jedi, because he was. I would like to see that fight. But anyway, it's even better than fighting because he robs Kylo Ren of destroying the Resistance because they escape while he's making the distraction, and he robs him of killing Luke Skywalker, either of which would have solidified Kylo Ren's ascent to the Supreme Leader. But as it is, in front of all of his men, and with a commanding officer who hates his guts already,
tried to shoot him while
he looks like a fool, So it's a mixed bag, and I am very interested to see where they go with the 9th one, because there is a finality to The Last Jedi, but there is something to build on for the next one.
Yeah, and let's see. So yeah, in a way, this movie was kind of a mix of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, with the subversions that come with it. The Last Stand with the main villain, his apprentice turning on him.
As they watch the Resistance getting blown up in the little telescope that Snoke has set out. I guess he likes to stargaze.
Well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I guess
you have this big ship and you wake up one morning, wow, stars everywhere.
It's I want to see Orion's belt. It's right there. No, get me there. I want to see it up close. But yeah, I guess the evil emperor has to have some kind of hobby.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it kind of looks like they stole in on him in his bathrobe.
Well, I've been wanting to write a villain that just has a cake decorating book in his closet.
Yeah, I like
reason.
villains with hobbies.
Yeah.
One thing about Tywin Lannister, he likes to hunt and he likes to dress his own game. He's introduced several times in the books doing it, although it's always thematic. When I think it's either the first season when he's up against the Baratheons, who their thing is a stag, he has just hunted and is gutting a stag.
Oh.
And it keeps happening like that. But anyway, back to the movies I have actually watched. I don't watch Game of Thrones.
But to illustrate what the middle chapter of a trilogy does wrong sometimes, the main example that comes to mind is Dragon Age 2, which stuff happens. It's a good game, but there's a lot of building up to the next chapter, and it doesn't really allow itself to have like a complete story.
Yeah, it's more vignettes and pieces of story that set up the final chapter.
Yeah, the trope. The name I usually hear for it is the two-part trilogy. You have the first installment, which is a standalone story, and then you have the second one that starts the story to be completed in the third one, and that's Dragon Age 2's biggest problem. Mass Effect 2 basically it's its own thing, so that's another avoidance of it. But I see trilogies, they don't allow anything to really be wrapped up in the second movie.
Yeah, and The Last Jedi really does. For example, like as we mentioned, Snoke gets whacked, and there is a pretty solid change in it's an ending almost in the way of Return of the Sith, where it ends with the Empire in control and the resistance to it lost or decimated and scattered. Really, the resistance is in the same boat that Obi-Wan and Yoda were in at the end of Revenge of the Sith. And Kylo Ren is kind of like a less effective emperor.
Yeah. So, and let's see. Thoughts on, this trilogy so far? One observation I have is it feels more like an ensemble piece.
Yeah,
like you have... Like, Rey is still a central character, but it's not like we're majority of the focus on Luke Skywalker. You have a lot more focus on the military, part of the, Star War.
Yeah, and Leia as a general is as major a character, whereas in the original trilogy, the generals, the actual military, showed up like at the very end to organize the Death Star thing, and then Luke Skywalker did whatever he wanted to anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
And I remember, Return of the Jedi, that one woman who briefs everyone and then just kind of ends on a downer. By the way, a lot of people died doing this.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
Those Bothans, they die in scores. They're ridiculous.
Yeah. And so there's, much more of a focus. And as a result, even on the First Order side, General Hux is more fleshed out than really any of Darth Vader's military lackeys.
Well, Darth Vader's military lackeys stuck around until they screwed up and then he choked them. So he's had more time to become more developed.
Well, actually, a lot of them seem a lot more savvy. Like, whenever they see Kylo Ren flipping out, I was like, I know a detour. Let's just go. Let's go.
Yeah, let's let the emo kid get it out of his system.
Yeah.
Although Hux is kind of like starting to learn, he gets choked a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting seeing that rivalry play out, and kind of going on to that, the more characterization thing. As a sequel trilogy, there's going to be a lot of comparison between the main characters on either side, and it's interesting what they've done with like the power trio of Rey, Finn, and Poe, where they've kind of mixed and matched a bunch of traits from the original three, Han, Luke, and Leia, and kind of created more unique characters. Like Rey is kind of the most obvious. She's like Luke and Leia, but a little bit of Anakin too, where she's a forgotten dumped off orphan in a desert planet.
Well, actually, have you read Chronicles of Prydain?
No.
Well, the main character, goes on a bit of a journey of discovery about like the fourth out of the fifth, part of the series, and he's trying to look for his mother and father, which he's given zero hint on up to that point. And so, long story short, he's told to go to this cave where he'll see a reflection. Sound familiar yet?
Yeah.
And this is after he's trying like all sorts of crafts. Like he makes a sword, but he's not really satisfied with that. He makes a jacket, but he's not exactly satisfied with that. And he just sees his own reflection. And the point of that reflection is just to show him, whoever your mother or father is, you created yourself.
This is so very similar to a scene in The Last Jedi where Rey goes to that mirror. But, she's... go ahead.
Well, one last point. In Chronicles of Pride, you never find out who his parents are.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I'm kind of okay with Rey not being some chosen one because, enough of the Skywalker family screwing up the galaxy. And I think that kind of says... It's another message, you don't have to be born to greatness to do great things.
Yeah.
She does not have to be the long-lost granddaughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi to be a hero. So that's a good message to anybody, really.
Yeah. And, well, it's a good illustration of why, the quote-unquote royal dynasties don't work.
That and inbreeding. Maybe that's why Snoke looks like that.
Well...
Speaking of inbreeding, hot Luke and Leia.
No.
Hey, he's clearly interested in that first movie. But anyway.
I think being... Anyway.
So,
that's been done
going on with the comparisons, Poe is interesting, but because he's kind of a mix of Han and Luke, where he's like the hotshot flyboy, the overconfident hotshot flyboy like Han, but his motivation is totally different. His motivation is much more like Luke. And he's much more of the straight-up heroic character that Luke is, but with more of a role like Han Solo. And he's kind of learning to curb both of those things to become more of a military leader. I think Leia is kind of trying to groom him into somebody who can lead the Resistance.
Yeah. I would say he's more like Luke Skywalker. If he wasn't Jedi, he was strictly just Air Force.
So kind of like Wedge.
Yeah, I would say that. Han Solo, like he's like Poe. He's definitely more an idealist. Where like he believes in the Resistance. Where Han started out just not caring at all.
Yeah, Han was very selfish, and that's also kind of something that Finn is.
Yeah,
and that's another thing Finn learns. His goal in the whole first movie is just get the hell away from the First Order.
Yeah, not join anyone, just go.
Yeah, he has two goals. Get away from the First Order and shack up with Rey. Clearly he is interested.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the Last Jedi kind of moves him more toward friends because they only share, like, the one scene. But they still clearly care about each other. And the Last Jedi, in particular, has Finn. His lesson is kind of learning to care about more than just himself and his close circle of friends, which kind of brings him more toward Luke. He's more like Han originally, where he has one goal. He just wants to get away from these people that want to kill him, and he doesn't want to be a hero again, like Han. And he's kind of learning to be more like Luke. So, like, kind of everybody's kind of trying to be more like Luke.
Well,
even Luke.
Yeah, he is basically the Messiah in this movie.
Yeah, he's a symbol, and even in The Last Jedi. Even Luke has to be... The lesson he has to learn is be more like Luke, but 20 years ago.
Well, keep in mind, getting names mixed up, Empire Strikes Back, Luke ditches his training because he feels his friend's in danger. And it's almost a reverse of that with Finn. He wants to ditch the Resistance, his duty's there to get Rey someplace safe.
Yeah, but at the same time, Rey kind of ditches Luke to
out
help
of frustration.
Yeah, partly out of frustration, partly out of, oh, for God's sake, why did I even bother coming here? I could have just...
Fine, I'll do it myself, stay here, and enjoy your strange milk.
Oh, how did I not mention that during the highlights? Yoda. It was great seeing Yoda again, and seeing Yoda put Luke in his place, and being played and puppeted by Frank Oz, that was icing on the cake. I genuinely did not see that coming. Yeah. And I was very happy to see Yoda show up because that was just really cool. A really nice callback to the original trilogy.
Well, it brings something to mind. Time for you to look past old books. Those books are probably really out of date considering that the Council's been around for generations.
Yeah, even Yoda says, yes, they contain some wisdom, but really they're not exactly page turners. And I like Luke's, Yoda goes, did you read them? And Luke sputters the way I sputtered when, my teachers asked if I read a book in high school. So Yoda was another highlight of the movie. I can't believe I forgot to mention him earlier.
Yeah.
But anyway, just, I guess, summing up the trilogy so far, I think it's in an interesting place to show where the next generation kind of kicks off.
Yeah. I think it'll be... Well, should we just skip the speculation then?
Well, that's skipping. That's the next thing.
Or fine.
But yeah, so in talking, and I was trying for an organic segue instead of reading the bullet points.
What have bullet points done for anyone?
Anyway, so obviously the next natural thing is to figure what Episode 9 is going to be like. Now, we know off the bat that they're going to have to make some changes to their original plan because the untimely and unfortunate death of Carrie Fisher.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. But credit to the director for not just cutting short her part in this and keeping her final performance intact, even if it creates a bit of a hurdle for whoever comes next. So,
I think the ending does imply that some time is going to pass before the Resistance can really be a threat again.
They're going to have to gather up their old allies, which is a good place to bring back guys like Wedge and Billy D. Williams as Lando.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe Boba Fett's out there somewhere.
Yeah. What? I'm just working.
Yeah, he's a mercenary. Pay him and you'll do what you want.
Yeah.
And that would be an interesting thing to bring back. More interesting if Leia was still in it. But yeah, we've talked about this before a couple times. And that last scene, like I said, it feels like an ending. And that's why I think there's going to be a time skip of several years from the end of The Last Jedi to the start of Episode 9. Partly to justify that the Resistance is in a place that it can fight back, and partly, because that would be a respectful way to kill off not kill off, but end the Princess Leia character.
Yeah.
Having it, that she's been working and just died peacefully, because otherwise, if she can't go on screen because she's not going to be able to film, obviously.
And I imagine it'd be a little disrespectful to CG her with Peter Cushing.
Yeah, they've already said they're not going to do that.
Yeah,
for a movie,
which is better.
Yeah, so I think that's what they're going to do. I think we're going to pick up with Rey and Finn maybe 5 years down the line. Rey has found people like that Stable Boy and others and is training up Jedi with the Resistance. Yeah. And they're in a place where I think 9 is going to be a kind of a more personal story, kind of probably a thing where Kylo Ren is hunting down Rey, and the First Order will be there, and there will be a conflict with the Resistance that presumably ends with the Resistance winning, although that would be a twist otherwise. But I think that's where it's going to be, where the central conflict is going to be Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, who has been absent up to now, against Rey and her new Jedi.
So now, next part, Kylo Ren. Do you see redemption down the road, since he is now in charge?
It's tough to say, because I think his biggest point he could have been redeemed is after killing Snoke. I think that's the closest he came. So I don't know what would redeem him now, because Rey has written him off. Luke wrote him off. Leia wrote him off as something that can't be saved.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough. I mean, the points in his favor is that he does seem to genuinely care about Rey.
Yeah.
And that he did hesitate in killing his mother. Yeah. But I think he's taking the put the past behind you thing too far. He's a Sith. He deals in absolutes.
Kind of think that he doesn't have much reason to go after Resistance.
Not anymore, because they're basically done, but I think he kind of has to, in the sense that they've gotten away.
Yeah, to make face.
And he wanted to make a big boast out of destroying them, because that was what he was going to hang his hat on, figuratively speaking, if he didn't bash his hat against the wall until it broke.
Well, it looked a little silly.
It did. But so yeah, he I think it's going to be tough. I think they're going to play with it some more, because he's clearly not fully embracing the dark side like Vader did for so long and like Palpatine did, because he does still show those moments of vulnerability, like with Rey and with his mother, and he finds the I guess the hologram of Han Solo's dice, which have never shown up before, but Luke finds them in the Falcon. But anyway, like he finds that little keepsake of his father, and he seems to hesitate over it. And the final shot of him is not somebody who's gloating in the dark side; it's someone who's kneeling in the dark, lost.
Yeah.
So I think it's a possibility. I think it's a long shot, and I think something dramatic is going to have to happen to justify that. But I don't think it's entirely out of the realm of possibility.
Well, another thing, during his whole rant is like, he includes the Jedi and the Sith as people he needs to get rid of. So, I wonder, like, how is that going to affect, the other Knights of Ren?
Well, the other Knights of Ren, well, he's the leader of them, apparently. So, which lends, no, in the first movie, in Force Awakens, he says, he calls Kylo Ren Master of the Knights of Ren, which leads me to believe that they're probably the other students of Luke Skywalker that he didn't kill.
Well, yeah. But, my theory of why they haven't shown up yet is, I think, very little time has happened between this movie and the previous.
Yeah, it takes place like the next week, if that.
Yeah, so, it could just be, they weren't available.
Yeah, I think, the First Order, we did not see the First Order's like entire fleet there. They're taking over the galaxy, so we're seeing just the bit that Kylo Ren was in charge of, and that Snoke was personally heading up. Obviously, they must have other places that they are to cow other star systems, and if it's taking place that close to the end of the Force Awakens, they are mobilizing on their coup of destroying the Republic in the first place. They're still in the midst of doing it, and I've heard that as a reason that the Resistance's allies do not show up to help at the end, because they don't know that the big Star Destroyer base has been destroyed. They think it might still be out there.
Yeah.
So it's a very immediate sequel. So, I think I would think probably the original plan, I would think, is that Kylo Ren would be redeemed, but with Leia playing a part of it in Episode 9. But I think that's now going to have to change, and I think the only real redemption we could see from him now is if there is some third greater threat that he has to put aside things for, and some other reason he would have to fight alongside Rey in the Resistance.
Well, there's a whole lot we don't know about Snoke, really.
Yeah, this is true. We don't know where he came from, what he was doing. There might be something. He might have been an envoy. There might be something coming to follow up on him.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren's mastery of the First Order might be very short-lived.
Yeah, so I did see kind of like a random guess, on TV tropes. And I think it makes a lot of sense. With Kylo Ren is not a good leader. Not as he is now.
He's not. He's
a bully.
He's a bully. He's impulsive. He breaks things when he gets fed up.
Yeah, probably a very expensive leader to have around.
Yeah, he's kind of like a pouty child.
Yeah.
More than anything.
So the guess was basically that the First Order will have an internal crumbling, internal decline between this movie and the next.
Well, yeah, I think the Last Jedi did establish toward the end that there is a conflict between Kylo Ren and Hux, and there are some officers who are going to listen to one and not to the other.
Yeah.
Or if they get conflicted orders, are going to pick and choose.
So I think the Resistance will find more allies than just the ones they were counting on. Namely, those who are like, okay, this Kylo Ren, I mean, we were all right with Snoke, but this guy's completely nuts.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of him.
I could see at some point in Episode 9... either Ren going to like Rey, or no, I could see Hux. Let me flip that around. I could see Hux like approaching Rey and her Jedi saying, "Look, Kylo's going too far. I need you to take him out, and I'll work with you." And of course, there will be backstabbing, and to the point where Rey will probably have to fight both of them.
Well, I can imagine, all the Jedi just wave a lightsaber and just going to Hux, just leave. He's like, okay.
Yeah, but I could see that happening. I could see him trying something like that to kind of underhandedly take away the First Order from Kylo Ren, or encouraging Ren to go after Rey so he could just be the de facto leader.
Yeah.
So I think Hux is going to play a pretty sizable role in the downfall of Kylo Ren, whatever form that takes.
Well, part of me was thinking of the lit in the books, Lord of the Rings, Grima Wormtongue, who ends up basically getting kicked one too many times by Saruman and slitting his throat. Grima Wormtongue slitting Saruman's throat.
Yeah.
So it's possible it could be something like that.
Yeah, I could see a thing where almost a reverse or a twist on the Return of the Jedi, where maybe Kylo Ren has Rey on the ropes and Hux, has just had enough and takes a shot at him.
Yeah.
So I can see something like that happen. I can see maybe like a splinter faction forming within the First Order, or maybe just straight up defecting when Kylo Ren or Hux goes too far.
Yeah. And I think, all these speculations point to, the strengths of the movies. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it ends on a fairly definitive note.
Yeah.
So you don't know the structure of the next one. And also because Carrie Fisher's gone, that also plays into it too, because you can't write she was going to have a big role in Episode 9. They've already said that. So they're going to have to write around that somehow, and I think whatever avenue Leia was going to angle for Kylo Ren, and that's the one that makes the most logical sense to me, that Leia was going to bring back Kylo Ren from the dark side to some extent. Maybe not a full, heel face turn, he's a good guy, but maybe like a more of a Darth Vader-ish, last redemption as he goes down.
Well, I could see Rey doing, kind of the same thing.
She already tried, though.
Yeah, but I think maybe I could see him. I mean, I think he's going to have to mature between this one and the next one if he hopes to survive. I'm thinking maybe he'll, because he does respect Rey.
Yeah, he likes Rey. He seems to be really into Rey, which, I can't blame him.
Yeah.
But I think part of the ending of The Last Jedi, that last, Force bond thing when they're looking at each other, she gives them this look of contempt and shuts the door on him. So I don't think, I think she's going to there's something is going to happen dramatically with her for her to think that Ben Solo could come back from being Kylo Ren.
Well, I did see something online basically demonstrating there's the Jedi, the Sith, and then a neutral.
The Gray Jedi. Yeah, that was something in the EU where that was kind of... The Gray Jedi is more something that Luke was in the old EU, where he recognized the excesses of the Sith versus the Jedi and decided they were both wrong, and he kind of made something closer to the middle in his Jedi Academy. For instance, the whole prohibition on getting married that screwed things up in the first place, not an issue. Luke gets married and has kids.
Knights get laid.
Yeah.
You have no excuse now. Just go.
So I think I could see that playing out where Rey, a lot what happens with a lot of real world institutions is they drift from their initial starting point. And that is something in the prequels where the Jedi were not what they were supposed to be. Rey now has the original Jedi texts, and no, she does not have the 1,000 years of tradition that kind of muddied those texts. So you might find something closer to the old Republic Jedi when they really were what they were supposed to be.
Right. Despite the burning of the temple, there is a scene that shows that, very similar looking books.
It's the same books.
Oh, she just took them?
Yeah. Oh. That's why Yoda is, again, trolling Luke when he says there's nothing in there that Rey doesn't already have. Because Rey has already literally stolen the books.
I imagine the ghost of Luke. Yeah.
Yoda is...
You have me emotional for no reason.
Yoda is a tricky little bastard, and I love him.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are clearly meant to be the same books that, that Rey nicked before she went off.
Man, there's so much to talk about in this movie.
There is. We could do hours and hours. We could do hours just gushing about it. We kind of cut down on that whole section.
Yeah.
Because it is just a well-made movie. I think it introduces enough twists to the Star Wars formula that makes me excited for the next one.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm Mike Curley.
And this is Frank Curley.
This has been the C Team. Okay, that's enough.
So,
I think you want to end there or what?
yeah, let's end there.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's a good